Okay, so here's the review video for the Chapter 1 mid-chapter test. The way this study guide is going to work is I am going to write some problems on the paper. I want you to pause the video, try to work those problems out the best you can, and when you think you have the answer, go ahead and press play, and you can see if you're right or not. Here we go. Okay, so for each of these, I want you to write a verbal expression that represents each one of these algebraic expressions. Press play when you're ready. Alrighty, so we have 2 times m for number 1. For number 2, 2/3 times x. You could also write 2/3 of x to the 4th power. And for the third one, x to the 3rd power minus 15 times h. Hopefully you did well. Okay, so for the next 3, I want you to write an algebraic expression for each of these verbal expressions. Press play when you think you have it. Okay, so for the first one, we have x more than 7, 7 plus x. You could write that the other way around if you wanted to. However, with subtraction problems, order is important. And whatever it mentions as being more than a number is what goes second. For number 5, 3 times q and plus 5. You could use any letter you wanted to. It doesn't have to be q. Just pick any letter for the variable. That's fine. For number 6, quotient means division, fraction. The first number they mention is going to be your numerator. The second thing they mention is going to be your denominator. That's it for section 1.1. If you do need more practice on this section, though, don't be afraid to look in your book. Remember, the answers to the odds are there. Okay, next up is a very important section, Chapter 1, Section 2, Order of Operations. Go ahead and try and do these 3. Remember the order of operations. First, you're going to take care of your grouping symbols, innermost first. After that, you're going to take care of any powers, exponents, then multiplication or division, then addition, subtraction. Go ahead. Alrighty, so hopefully you did pretty well on these. For the first one, the first thing that we are going to do is 14 divided by 2, that gives us 7. Then 30 minus 7 is 23. For number 2, with fractions we want to take care of the numerator, then the denominator, then finish it up. So the first thing we have is 11 minus 8, which is 3. Then what we're going to do is take care of this 7 times 2 in the denominator. That gives us 14. 1 plus that's 15. So we end up with 3/15, or if you reduce it, 1/5. Now for this one, remember when you have multiple grouping symbols, you're going to do the innermost first. And if you have multiple sets of innermost, which you won't, at least not on this test, you're going to go with the one on the left first. So we would start right here. So we look inside and we've got 4 squared. 4 squared is 16. So on the next line, we've got 8 times 2. 8 times 2 is 16. Next, 16 minus 16 is 0. On the next line, and I put a little star here, this is optional. I wrote this here just to let you know that these brackets are no longer necessary because there's nothing else to do inside of them. However, you can skip this line if you want to. So the next thing we're going to do is multiplication, because that comes before addition, so the 0 technically doesn't drop away. 7 times 4 is 28. Now we can do our addition. 0 plus 28 is 28 for our final answer. Now, if you do want or you do need more practice on these, there are tons of them in the book. All the answers to the odds are in the back, so go ahead and do as many as you can. Okay, so the next section, 1.3, is properties of numbers. Now, for this section, remember there was that list. You should have this in your notes, and you need to be able to identify the properties. I wrote down 2 problems that were solved using order of operations, and what I want you to do is I want you to list the properties next to each arrow for what took place in each one of these steps. Press play when you think you have it. Alrighty, so hopefully you did well. So with this first problem, the first thing we're going to do is substitution, and I wrote down in black what happened for each one of these. The first thing we did was 4 minus 3 equals 1, so we substituted in that 1. So now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take care of this multiplication here. Multiplicative identity is when you multiply a number times 1, it equals itself. Next thing we have is we have the multiplicative inverse. The 5 and 1/5, these are reciprocals. If you're not sure about that, remember the 5 you can make a fraction by putting it over 1, and 5 over 1 times 1/5, they are reciprocals, and reciprocals equal 1. Next, we are going to have substitution. 7 minus 1 equals 6. And then finally substitution, 6 plus 1 equals 7. Now, all I'm looking for you to do is to write down the properties. The part here that I wrote, you don't have to. I just put that there for the explanation. Now, for number 2, first thing we're going to do is use substitution. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Next thing we're going to do is additive inverse. 5 minus 5 equals 0. Next we have multiplicative inverse. Again, 7 and 1/7. These are reciprocals. Reciprocals equal 1 when you multiply them. Next, multiplicative property is 0. When you multiply something times 0, it becomes 0. And next, additive identity. Anything plus 0 is itself. Now, again, the list is in your book, Chapter 1, Section 3. Definitely look it over. Look over what we did in class on the notes, and there are plenty of problems there to practice as well. So next, we have distributive property in Chapter 1, Section 4. So for these two problems, go ahead and rewrite these expressions using distributive property and then simplify if you can. Okay, hopefully you did well on these. With distributive property, basically whatever's outside of the parentheses, whether it is before it or after it, it doesn't matter. We're going to distribute, meaning multiply it, by each of the terms. Make sure you take into account the signs. So for example, in this property here, we have 7 times 3w. Both of them are the same sign, so we have a positive answer, 21w. And here, the signs are different, so we have a minus, and 7 times 5 is 35. Here, the number outside of the parentheses is on the end. It's okay, we still do it the same way. Times the first term, signs are the same, so it's positive 30x cubed. Here, the signs are the same, so we have plus 5x. Here, the signs are different, so we have minus 10. Next, what I want you to do is simplify these expressions. So remember, we are combining like terms. Like terms have the same variable to the same power. Give it a shot. Okay, so with this one right here, the like terms are these two right here. They both have x. When there's no power written at all, we assume the power is 1. So 5x's plus 2x's, that's going to be 7x's, and we have this term right here, a plus 3. So we're done with that. Now for this big long one, start with the very first term that you have, y to the third power, and we look through. We see other y's, but they're not to the third power, so there's no other like term here, so we simply write 5y to the third power. Next we have a minus 4y squared, so I look through here, there's another minus y squared. Now if there is no coefficient, we assume there's only one of these, so we have minus 4y squared, minus y squared. Think of it as negative 4 minus 1. And negative 4 minus 1 is going to be a negative 5. So we have minus a total of 5y squared. And once you have these used in the long problems, I recommend that you cross them out. That way you don't have the same thing used twice. Next thing we're going to look at right here, I have a plus 2x squared. So I look through here, no other x squared. So I simply write it, 2x squared. Now, right here, I have an x to the first power, or no power present. There's plus x, this is minus x. Well, plus x and minus x, these actually cancel each other out. Remember, that's called additive inverse. They cancel each other out and equal 0. So since they cancel each other out, we don't even have to write anything. And now we're left with minus 3. So there's our final answer. And again, there's tons of problems in the section on this as well. The answers to the odds are in the back of the book. Now, if you got everything okay, you should be in great shape for the test. If you had a little bit of trouble, don't worry. Just study hard over the weekend, and hopefully you'll do well. All right, see you.